K-Wave 6 Radio, your show for all things positive. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you are in the world. This is Kirk Spencer, your host. Tonight we are working on a series called Cognitive Dissonance, Part 4, Denying Who You Are. We have talked a lot about different ways of understanding cognitive dissonance. We did a show last week where we were talking about cognitive dissonance when it comes to government, your rights, and understanding, what you can and cannot do, what your limits are, and even talking about what the Constitution, at least of the United States, is, which is, it's incorrect to say, I know my constitutional rights. Well, if you knew your constitutional rights, you would know that the Constitution was written to limit government, not limit the citizens. So with that in mind, we also talked about some things about religions. We spoke on our first one a little bit about spirituality and metaphysics, and we're going to delve back into that in this show. To start, I'm waiting for my guest to show up. But also let me remind you about following K-Wave 6 Radio and what's going on with K-Wave 6 Radio, which you can find easily, which is at www.kwave6, that's the number 6, radio.tk. And if you follow our blog, you can follow that just by clicking on the little RSS feed in the right-hand column on our blog. And the blog is actually titled, What's New? It's not a question, it's a statement about what's going on. Later on in the show, when my guests show up, we're going to have a little conversation about what's going on, about our topic today. And it's not, as if you read the blog, it is not something that's just going to be this topic only, just on things that are spiritual and understanding who you are as a human being. You're not just a physical being. We're going to get into that. I am besides a radio host and a producer and creating things on the internet, I'm also an English teacher, but I'm also a holistic therapist, and one of my specialties is energy healing. I'm a Qigong master, and that will take a little for some people to get used to. And hopefully when everybody gets here, and about a half an hour to 45 minutes, probably closer to 45 minutes, we will actually be taking calls from our listeners. So if you have questions, comments, or you just want to get into a little bit of a discussion, depending on how many people call in, we can take your calls and go from there. Until that happens, let me play a station promo, and we'll see if we can get a guest to come online. So if you would, please just stay with us, and we'll be right back.
Thank you for listening to the Freedom Talk Radio Network and the Knights of Liberty show, with your host, Andy Peacher, and author Timothy Spearman. Live from Grimsby in the UK and Toronto in Canada every Saturday at 5 p.m. UK time and 12 noon Eastern Standard Time in the USA and Canada. Call into the show when the phone lines are open. UK call-in number 0131 618 7778. And from the USA and Canada, call 315 462 4100. Visit the station's website on www.freedomtalkradio.co.uk and author Timothy Spearman's website www.shakespeare.com. That's www.shakespeare.com. Look at Tim's recent books, Odds on Favourite and Butterfly Dreams, found on the homepage and the Books tab.
While we wait for our guest to connect, let me remind you about our Thoughts for Growth podcast. Our Thoughts for Growth episodes are 3 to 5 minute thoughts which are inspirational, motivational, and or thought-provoking. K-Wave 6 Radio is dedicated to bringing positive programming in all that we do. Thoughts for Growth airs on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. Eastern on Podomatic.com, iTunes, Stitcher.com, on our RSS feed, and on YouTube. Be sure to follow our blog. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. All of our links to follow and our media players can be found at www.kwave6radio.tk. That's Kwave6 with the number 6, radio.tk, or, if you prefer, www.kwave6radio.wordpress.com. And welcome back to K-Wave 6 Radio. Our guests have not showed up just yet. I spoke with Chad earlier this morning, and he was saying that he would be here, but considering what's going on down here in Mexico, he lives in Mexico as well, I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Last week he had problems with his telephone line, which also connects him with his internet, just like it does down here with me. And Michelle Vaughn, I just checked with Skype. She says she's trying to get on, but I'm not sure if she's going to make it because I cannot connect her with Skype, unfortunately. Anyhow, I do have a great friend of mine here who happens to be let's just say he's a reverend, because that's his title. Robert C., better known as Stash. Welcome on board, Stash.
Well, greetings, sir. Yeah, I just talked to Chad. He's going to try and come in through Skype on Blog Talk Radio.
Okay.
So he should
that works.
Momentarily.
Sounds good. Let me do this. Let me send a message to Michelle by Skype, and why don't you give us your thoughts on basically our topic while I do this real quick.
All righty. Well, you know, the funny thing is, doesn't the universe just happen to provide wonderful examples of cognitive dissonance?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like huge, because it's the U.S. government this time. There's this little thing called the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. And every country had until the end of March to become a founding member of this. And the funny thing is, a whole load of American allies decided to join up, with warnings against it by the U.S. And, oh, man, everybody got in except the U.S., who, through cognitive dissonance, can't seem to realize that they're losing their hold on their global power. Oh, it's a perfect example of what we were talking. They cannot admit to themselves that they're losing it. So I have to think that was just a classic example of. So, you know, there you go. There's a way to start. It's just that when it shakes your reality so much that you can't believe it and you constantly deny it, uh-oh.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. And that's just an example. You know, it's going on all over.
That's true. Yeah, well, you and Troy actually, what I call my resident government people, so why don't we kind of start with that real quick. as I said at the beginning of the show, when people say, I know my constitutional rights, matter of fact, the question I'm starting to ask people is, you know your constitutional rights, huh? Oh, you work for the government? No. Why? The Constitution was written to limit the government, not the citizens.
Well, there's a conflict right there. You do not have constitutional rights. What you have are constitutionally guaranteed, God-given rights, unalienable rights, and the Constitution merely says that the government has no right to take those away from you. But when you start talking constitutional rights, there's no rights in the Constitution. Just just a protection that says they can't do anything about it. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Like saying you're a sovereign citizen, which is an oxymoron because you're either sovereign or you're a citizen. You cannot be both. They're mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Yeah. Actually, by Black's Law Dictionary, sovereign means a royal, basically king or queen, or I forget the exact title they give this one, but basically the head of a country, put it that way.
Well, the Constitution, the king said, whichever one it was, I think it was George III, when the Constitution was signed, he said that gives every American the same status as a king or queen. And basically the concept is you are the king and queen of your own life. Your kingdom ends at the next person's nose, and theirs ends at yours.
Mm-hmm.
So, you are the king of your own domain. A man's home is his castle. He's king in his own castle. And I use that, the generic man, him, whatever, for humankind, male, female, without respect to either, just in general. Humanity living in America, if we were born here, we are the kings of our own castle. And we have the same rights as any king anywhere in the world. So,
have your own domain.
It's hard for people to understand. It really is. That's what happens when you start educating yourself and get past the propaganda and the programming that you have been given all your life. And this is where people start having problems with cognitive dissonance. What do you mean what they told me isn't right? They're the government. Well, yeah, don't want you to know you're sovereign. They want you to think that they are in control, that they are leaders, not public servants.
All right, here's the... Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. That was my thought.
Okay. Actually, I was just going to ask you, now, we know cognitive, that's thought. Dissonance is, and I was actually looking for this definition real quick. I'll find it in a moment. Dissonance is when there is a conflict between what you believe and the new information that is given you. So how do you, Stash, how do you think we can get past the dissonance in a world society? Because we're all, as you said, we're all believing that the government and the corporations, and they all know better than we do, but, without us, they don't exist. So how do we get people to go from dissonant to understanding and then doing something about it? In other words, the action.
I can sum it up in 2 words: knowledge and information. The government is not required to teach you the law. That is not their job. Their job is supposedly to create and enforce laws. but those laws only relate to them. But they don't want to tell you that. So when you start to come out of it, when you start to actually read the laws and what they say, then you start to, people first get mad. This can't be right. And they wouldn't do that to me. And then it goes to, what have they done to me? Hang them all. But you have to get past that point where you say, okay, it is what it is. Now, what can I do to change my life? And unfortunately, and being a sovereign, you are the only one who is in control of your life. You're the only one who can change it. So you have to make the effort, and you have to be willing to look past your own disbelief. There's the other thing, willingness to do this. You have to say, okay, not like, well, they're in control, I can't do anything about it. That's not true. Things are popping up left and right where they've tried to enact unconstitutional situations where a mass of people the gun ban or the ammunition ban they were trying with ATF last month. They got close to, I think, they got a whole, I think it was 10 million something emails and comments saying, don't you dare. And when that many people stand up and say, no, you won't, they better listen. They had better listen.
Yeah, I'm getting at the point here of, let's see, how are we doing this one? Okay, first of all, let me look for cognitive dissonance.
Before you, I got to switch because I'm getting this through a different method straight through Skype here, in a call with you and Chad. So
yeah, I know, but I can't call it. Did you call in on Skype?
I called in through Blog Talk, but the call that I was getting.
Did you call in by phone? Did you call by phone or by Skype?
By Skype.
Then you can pull them in. I can't do that.
Well, let's see if I can do that. All
right, while you're trying, let me do this one real quick. Cognitive dissonance. Sometimes people hold a core belief that is very strong. When they are presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted. It would create a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable called cognitive dissonance. And because it's so important to protect the core belief, those things that you believe deep within your soul, they will rationalize. People will rationalize, ignore, and even deny anything that doesn't fit with the core belief, with everybody's core belief, whatever that core belief is for the individual. And this is by Frantz Fanon, who basically keyed, or shall we say, started the phrase cognitive dissonance. It's just trying to tell somebody that this is the way it is, and people just call, I can't accept that. And I hear that quite often from quite a few people I know. I can't believe it. I can't accept that. Or that's not the way it is. It should be this, but it's not that. But you're going to stick with it should be. Anyhow, Stash, I don't know. I know I can still hear that you're online there, but I know they're trying to call again. I can't pull them in on Skype on my end.
Well, let me try.
Yeah.
are you here, sir?
I'm here. That was an interesting tune that played.
Yeah, well, Chad is going to try and come through the blog talk and go from there. So anyway, we're back.
Correct. I heard Michelle in the background. Did I hear Michelle there? Michelle, are you there? Evidently not. Okay. Okay. But I heard her laugh. Thought that was her laugh. She was saying that she wasn't going to be on tonight because she had some work to do with an attorney over a personal matter, and her son was involved in a car accident, so I wasn't really expecting her to be here. But before the show started, I got a message from her saying that she was going to try to make it in, so I'm assuming that's her trying to call in. So hopefully she will make it in. But anyway, getting back to cognitive dissonance, and we're trying to get back into that because there's a bunch of people here that want to hear us talk about cognitive dissonance and denying who you are versus our technical problem here. Anyhow, one of the things that I'm really trying to break here is once people have been brought to this new understanding, or actually maybe even can accept what the information is that's being presented to them. And I don't mean just somebody who's giving them word of mouth and saying, this is the way it is and you need to accept it. Well, that's what the government does and other institutions. It's a point of, even if you're studying it, if you're going into this and you're finding a lot of information that actually, let's just say, it supports the previous thing that you read. So in other words, if you're looking up, we just used it, constitutional law. If you look it up in a regular dictionary and then you go to Black's Law Dictionary and you check someplace else, maybe a law university, and they all agree with each other, then the cognitive dissonance, the dissonance that we're actually experiencing here, should actually wane and go away. Then, once you accept that new information, then how do we motivate people to do something? Most people I know that prefer to deal with the dissonance by ignoring it or whatever, how do you get people to get motivated to do something? Because, people like to they like to pass the buck, in other words, for responsibility, and that's one of the things that even talking about it from a spiritual nature, from a metaphysical nature, you have to own your decisions, you have to own your actions. And people are just, these days, I think, I don't know, I haven't been in the United States for a while, but people don't seem to want to own their responsibility for anything that goes on. So how do you get people to say, look, I'll take responsibility for who and what I am, and yes, I need to make something happen?
Well, first off, of course, you have to provide them a direction, a reason to go on. You have to say, you want to know what you can do? Well, here's something you can do. This was one of the things I kept pushing with the National Liberty Alliance in trying to restore the common law grand juries to the court system. People will run around and get frustrated and pull their hair out until they finally say to themselves, there's nothing I can do. Well, with this, to get past the cognitive dissonance part and actually do something, you have to educate people. You have to show them that there is something that can be done. I finally had, after many hair-pulling arguments in my Facebook threads, I finally gotten a few, and the number is growing, people to say, okay, I'm willing to accept what you say. Now what do I do about it? And I try to give them direction. The biggest thing right now is to get people to stop playing their game. Number one, stop voting. Voting doesn't do a damn thing in this country. It changes nothing. It is a scam. They're rigged. You only get the choice of the politicians they put up. You have to say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. You have to find out, are you a qualified taxpayer? Is it really necessary for you to file? And now there are documents out on the net that show you that you don't. You have to be willing to accept that and take the risk. This is the biggest thing that people fight, is the risk factor. You know, like one example would be, well, if you vote for an independent, that's going to give the Republican we want. We don't want another vote. No, that's not giving the Republican a vote. That's taking one away from both sides. And I've been pushing this real hard. You want to change things? Don't vote for anybody with an R or a D after their name. It just think, if the majority of American people voted for an independent or wrote in something like none of the above, no acceptable candidates presented, go back and start over. You know, it would totally throw their game out of kilter. You want to start fighting the control factor, the banksters, the gang. I call them gang banksters. You want to fight their hold on the world? Stop putting your money in banks. They're a corporation. You stop patronizing them, they go out of business. Same thing with companies like Insanto. You don't like them.
Hold on. I know you're saying Insanto, but some people don't know. Insanto, Stash has a way of changing the names a little bit. He's talking about Monsanto. But go ahead.
Totally Insanto. But if you don't want them to succeed in their game, stop buying their products. You don't want GMO foods? Don't buy them. You know, fight back with your consumer dollars. There's so many things you can do. Join a group. Right now, one of the best things you could do is find out who the militias are in your area and join a militia, because ultimately they're the ones that are going to protect your home from those people who are trying to control you. This is why we still have a Second Amendment. It protects the First Amendment and our homes. It keeps us from a dictatorial government. That's why they put it in the first place, just for that reason, not to just to be able to protect yourself and your home and your loved ones from criminal invasion, from the guy who wants to rob you, but also the government that wants to rob you, the government that wants to control you. We have the right, by the Declaration of Independence, not only the right, but the duty to replace them if they get out of hand. And there is the other side of it, duty. People don't understand. You want to be an American, you have a duty to act. This is the American spirit. If somebody is trying to step on your throat, it's your duty to stop them. But you have to educate yourself and then educate those around you and start acting in unison to not do this anymore. But there it comes back to the same thing: knowledge, education, information. Now, the nice part that we have this revolution, which, by the way, some people don't want to realize, is in full swing. We are in a full-blown revolution in this world, and it's a revolution of consciousness. And the biggest mistake the government made was letting us have the Internet, so that now we know, we can find out exactly what they're doing to us. But you got to use it. You got to get up your butt, put the beer down, turn off American Idol and the football game and NASCAR, and actually take an interest in your own life. So that's the simplest way I can put it.
That was a simple way. Okay. I'm sorry.
Get up
just
and
joking.
do something. Yes.
Yes, indeed. Um, that's the part that I'm kind of curious about because people, even when they become knowledgeable and accept the knowledge it is now, most people feel alone. They feel that they can't do this. And of course, you know this as well as I do. You can teach somebody if they're willing to learn. If they're not willing to learn, they will not learn. And if you can get them to learn, then getting them motivated, because we know that it takes more than one person for many things to happen. But then there are many times that only one person is really needed to make something happen, to make a change in the world, whether it be in your local community or as far as a world change. So that's what I'm kind of really getting at, because there's going to be a lot of people that just go, I just no, I'm not going to get involved. I don't want to get involved. I feel alone when I do this. For those who feel disempowered, what is your suggestions there?
First off, know that you're not alone. Believe me, how many people do you talk to every day who bitch about taxes, who bitch about the government, who bitch about the laws? They know it's wrong. And we have been so programmed for the last 100 years by the nanny state. Oh, don't do that. You don't have to do anything. Relax. We're the government. We're here. We'll take care of you. Yeah, we'll tell that to the Native Americans. One person can make a change. And all you have to do is, when you learn something, share it. Get 1 or 2 or 10 other people to understand it. And sooner or later, you reach what they call the 100th monkey point, where it becomes common knowledge. Everybody knows this. So, yeah, there is something you can do. If you find something really important that shakes your world, changes it, share it. Make somebody else understand. Make your family understand. And I know there's a lot of people talk about how their sons, daughters, wives, husbands, parents just don't understand your radical BS. That's not the way. Oh, yes, it is. It works this way, and this is the way we can change it. So make them understand. It's a hard battle. It really is. Like I say, I've pulled my hair out on several threads, arguing with people. Well, it's not that way. Yes, it is. Here are the facts. Go look at the facts. Here's what you say. The government does this and that, and they say they can do it. And I say, well, here's the law that says they can't. And this is, again, where I run into cognitive dissonance, because the government says one thing, but their documents say another. Well, if it's written down, that's the way they have to work. And if you call them on it, they have to back down. Unless you're going into a common court in this country. That's why the National Liberty Alliance started, was to get rid of all of the corruption of the corporate courts dealing in contract legalese, what they call color of law. It's not law. It is color of law. It looks like a law, but it's not really. Anything, statutes, regulations, ordinances, from the federal government all the way down to the city of, are only that. They're color of law. They're not lawful. They're legal by their definition, but their definition is unlawful. And you have to learn discernment, how to make the distinction between them. And again, it comes back to educating yourself and educating those around you.
Mm-hmm. I believe we have Chad on the line. Are you there?
Yes, I am. I tried 2 different other mediums. I finally just picked up the phone and called you.
Yay!
Okay.
Hi, Chad.
Remind me to get your telephone number later. I'll give you. I just found out I could call you by Blog Talk, but I can't call you any other way, and I can't call you before the show starts either. So, anyhow, welcome,
hey,
Ted.
One of these days we may have to hire an engineer.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, excuse me. We were just talking. I've been trying to call Michelle here because I figured out, hey, I can call her, but she's not answering the call, so I don't know what's going on there. Anywho, Stash has been getting us informed about the legal side. Now let's switch gears and go in towards this denying who you are. So, Chad, I know you always have something to go with that. Would you like to start with that?
Well, sure. I mean, it seems to be a requirement to live in this one of the darkest time periods in the face of in history. You literally on every front, it's almost requirement to get by, to literally lie to yourself and lie to others. Case in point, the latest thing about the whole mess with the Scientology and the whole HBO saga. John Travolta gets out here and tells, it's complete. Scientology is beautiful, and the bottom line is that these guys are all jerks and they are lying about it. But he did not see the program. So, I mean, that just kicks in with that, and there's some personalities that it's extraordinarily evident. John Travolta is one, Tom Cruise the other. They wake up in this complete different surreal world with a surreal religion that dictates all kinds of things and makes them do all kinds of very interesting things. They deny themselves, they deny the truth. But that's just the part that they're I guess the more glaring examples of it. But I mean, if you're a citizen of a country and you literally are, and it doesn't matter which one you're with. It could be Russia, it could be Mexico, it could be the United States. You wake up with a certain amount of cognitive dissonance, which you know what you have to do to survive in that, and it's an upside down world, and it's heartbreaking. It makes people mentally ill. It shortens their life. It takes the quality of life. Now, there's, of course, and I just got the tail end of something that Stash was saying or talking about, being proactive, knowing the laws and what have you. And I have a lot of experience along those same lines as far as, well, hey, listen, if you're in the United States, you have a thing called the Constitution, that this governing body where you never lay down the crown. The reality of it is that you've got to be an extraordinary individual to exercise those constitutional rights, and that is with the hope of having somebody do what's right. There's this counterparty movement. So we're all subject to this cognitive dissonance, and this. I don't care what religion you are. I mean, the proof is clearly evident. In fact, one of the wonderful things I'm seeing is that with the internet is there's all this instantaneous information, about all these various subjects, particularly religion. I mean, it doesn't matter which one you're in. You can basically get to the real skinny, the origins, and the various things about it, which should help you become free. Now, for me, that aspect has been very, very helpful because it allowed me to get through all the various onions of my own faith, fundamentals faith, back down to even the fundamentalist Christian, down to back to Lutheranism, back to Catholicism, back to how it all started, and you throw up your hands and think, okay, everybody is adhering to a guy in Rome who has no basis nor authority to be there or to do that, or to dictate the terms of the way people's lives. But again, you have to have the right information to do that, and then you have to have the intellectual honesty which is something that completely blows my mind, because I mean I lived in Utah for quite a few years, and these people had PhDs, and you would bring them the proof, the historical proof, and yet it didn't matter because of that cognitive dissonance would make them look the other way. And if you go to work every day, many of us who have, there's this kind of game you have to play with the office politics. Now, my biggest complaint about all this stuff, as far as if you get into things in terms of productivity, and as far as spiritual awareness, and our advancement in our own evolution, everyone sits there and pats each other on the back of where, how far we've come. I think it's balderdash. I think that we should be light years. I actually think that we should be flying around without, and this may sound outlandish, I think we should be flying on flying carpets. I think we should be able, I think there's certain keys, but again, it's because we don't realize that within ourselves, our own power and what have you, and that is done by design. And so it is part of this matrix that is being done to you. And what I think the best antidote is, and I kind of talked a little about this with Michelle, I think when you have nothing to lose, I think there's a certain amount of freedom. But by becoming attached to all this material, if you don't do this, then you're not going to get that. And you better pay on time, or you won't get a special interest rate. And unless you're able to turn your back on all of the material goodies and stand alone as a true loving spirit, the face of the planet, and say, hey, and arbitrary and reject that, I think that is the antidote. At least that's my belief, and I know that we're going to get there. One of the things I actually have in the back of my head is, Kirk, is I know we're going to get there by hook or by crook. I mean, because eventually the system is going to collapse. It's not going to be. We all know it's unsustainable, and the lies are one by one are being revealed to us, and I think that shows a lot of promise. Now, it may not be pretty. And I think it'd be very, very similar to have our faces rubbed in crap, I guess, to a lot of people, was just say, hey, wake up, this is the reality of it, and the shock is going to be tremendous. But in essence, I think it's going to be a good thing.
Indeed. If you don't mind, I don't know if you want to do this or not, but some time ago, a couple of weeks ago or so, you and I were talking off air, of course, and you were telling me that between you and your uncle, your family, you got to know some of the people that were involved with the beginning of the Scientology groups, L. Ron Hubbard, and a few others.
Yes.
Do you mind kind of
Parsons,
talking about that?
Yeah. Well, actually, if you go into Scientology, and you can track all of this stuff, together along with my uncle, and if you read some of his books, you can see where L. Ron Hubbard had this gigantic, grand idea of creating his own religion, which is what my uncle essentially, with the Church of Universal Wisdom and the College of Universal Wisdom, et cetera, that was out there. That's essentially what he did in 1947. Well, lo and behold, L. Ron Hubbard was out at the channeling sessions out there, where my uncle, and Scientology is really ufology, which is a sense in many essence his own version of the universe and how it works and what have you. But many of those ideas came out from the various entities that my uncle was channeling inside of Giant Rock, and his buddy Jack Parsons, which again, for those who don't know, they actually have named a place on the moon after him, a portion of the moon after him, and he is primarily responsible for, in fact, it's JPL, which is Jet Propulsion Laboratory, but here, check out the Akron, the Jack Parsons Laboratory. Well, all the rocketry was being done out of the experiments were being done out in Southern California, not too far away from the rock. So they were frequent visitors. So a lot of these ideas were bubbling, okay, and there were several split-off groups that went apart. But my uncle, and there were also some Indian gurus out near there too. But there was, but it was incredible. It was the in thing. It was the inside thing to do back in early California, to be a part of this, group. And it was a smaller group. And if you can imagine back then, the amount of, and especially particularly within that subject matter, both UFO, space channeling, all the various things were going. It was a small club. I mean, it wasn't. It was. They were all bumping into each other, and they were reading each other's books, and they were listening to each other's speeches and talks, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of this stuff is tracking from what Scientology did, and he did it very, very well. L. Ron Hubbard, a lot of that came out from Giant Rock, and it's just that a different version of it. So from that respect, it's exciting. But also, my uncle was a little bit more. He was a little different because he actually was doing experiments and working with people like Howard Hughes and some other research groups. I mean, multitudes of research groups out of Chicago to do things, with Project Looking Glass and some of this other stuff, trying to do time travel. In fact, the dome out there, it's a cell rejuvenation machine, but it also was constructed as a time machine. So all of these thought processes that literally have got us to where we're at, I think a lot of it started out there. And I mean, I had no idea when I was a little kid walking around there and experiencing my own weird events, that all this actual material science and material research was actually going on. I guess within I could throw a baseball bat at the dome, and I used to walk across the dry lake to Giant Rock. So it was like in my own little. It was this little weird community of, I guess you can call it science, pseudoscience, you name it, but that was what was happening.
And the brainiacs of the day.
The brainiacs of the day,
know,
yeah.
For those who don't know, Chad's uncle, you can look this up on YouTube. You can look it up just any place. His uncle's name is George Van Tassel. It's George Van Tassel. On previous shows that Chad and I have done, you'll see either a link, and you'll find this in our YouTube channel, to his video, and you'll see pictures of him there as well. We do that on the YouTube because we can't do that on radio. But anyhow, before we go into our hour break, which is about 12 minutes away, give or take, roughly, let's get back into what the subject is about, just denying who we are. In other words, we all have heard at some point or another in our lifetime talking about spirituality, and we are a spirit being living in a physical body. A lot of us know that when the body dies, the spirit continues on. I know that goes contrary to some religious beliefs. Some actually support that and believe it and know it to be true. But there's that dissonance there that says no, the body and the spirit are all in one. The body dies, so does the spirit, or whatever the certain beliefs are. For those who aren't there, just say that doesn't exist at all. So, either one of you, how do you want to really get into that one?
Well, a lot of it, I think, right off of the bat, every side of this comes down to one word, especially in America, which is fear. That we're afraid of losing what we have. We're afraid of the government. We're afraid they're going to take everything away from us. They're afraid they're going to kill us. We're afraid. I stopped being afraid and I know I kind of ticked off a few people on Easter when I said the thing you got to remember is I don't need a middleman to talk to the Creator. You know, I know who I am. I know what I am, and I'm not afraid. That's why I can step up, you know, and back to what Chad was, I have nothing to lose, really. You know, the worst thing they can take away from me is my life. And, of course, if they do that, then they make me a martyr and they've just defeated their own cause. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that, you know, as far as the whole thought of the portable soul and what have you, I've you know, I've literally, I mean, I was the, you know, for all kinds of different reasons, I was you know, strange kid because I had so many strange experiences, but with UFOs and such. But so I was really intent on finding out what the heck all this stuff was about. So I was a kid that would be, you know, with a couple of friends, we'd actually read the Bible all weekend long from cover to cover, stay up, and, you know, whatever way we could, we'd just sit there and read, and study all this stuff and what have you. So I was always keenly interested in finding out, you know, about this whole, you know, this portable soul, the hereafter, and I think that. I think what's important and I have the darndest time. I don't have any problem with people who are agnostic at all. I don't. My biggest problem is with the hardcore atheist who believes that this creation of life and this, you know, and it actually almost defies science because atoms are literally indestructible. So we know that something goes on, you know, into another existence. So I have a hard time with that whole theory of, you know, when you eat a dirt sandwich and that's over. I just have a very difficult time trying to conceive of that whole thing. In fact, I've got some pretty heated arguments. In fact, I actually lost a friend with an atheist. I found the only, I think one of the few Indians from India science who was an atheist. And hated his own culture, hated all this stuff. I don't go that far, but the reality of it is that we go somewhere else, and I think we graduate. I think we literally graduate to a different, and I would suspect a better place. I think that there are certain things that we're able to do with this body. You know, here that we're supposed to, and I think it has to do with sensation, being able to you know, utilize this body down here as this creature with these two slots in our eyes, and so. But yeah, I think that there's something, you know, to that. But with that, there's an incredible amount of there's both freedom and responsibility that occurs with it, and also there is a downside, and the downside is that there is this explosion of people who have this interest in this, what's going on down here, and I think there's several levels of consciousness that we're being pulled in every direction that we can, that they can into us, and with the ultimate idea of getting, with these various levels of higher consciousness to pull us in their direction to get what they want manifested down here. And what's scary right now is, and it ties into cognitive dissonance, and this is where I'm getting with this, is that when you travel in this whole thing is you're seeing things that if you're halfway conscious, you know, vis-a-vis, you know, $800 trillion worth of derivatives out there. We're actually in the same position as we were in 2008. I mean, and people are doing very strange, violent things in every country, and you can see it in real time that there is a concentrated. So you have to go into the whole subject matter of this, you know, divine and evil being pulled in each direction. So how do you do it? Well, you do that by blinding people. You do this by manipulating them with various tricks and the trades of that. You make them become sensationalists with drugs, with food, with alcohol, with materialism. You do everything you can to push your agenda. Now, the whole final agenda, only God knows. I mean, or the higher power knows as far as what it is. But it just seems so apparent of what is happening here, because we're seeing people implode.
Indeed. Matter of fact, well, you were talking about atheists and the hardcore atheist. I have a different term that I call a hardcore atheist these days, and I'll get to that in a moment. But there's a lot of people that don't like fundamental Christians, those who are knocking at your door, those when you talk to them, they always have to relate everything to their religious beliefs, etc., etc., and we call them fundamentalists. I call, as you call them, hardcore atheists, I call them fundamental atheists, because by the definition of a dictionary, an atheist is one who lacks belief. And I've known atheists, just plain dictionary type, who are just fine, and they don't mind talking to you a certain degree as long as you're not trying to convince them of something. They don't mind talking to you. But those who are out there going, you know, you're a fool, you believe in this ancient stuff, and they have a whole spiel that they want to give you about why do you believe that way, those are the ones that, as you say, you can lose friendships over. You just end up turning them off and just going, you know, thank you very much, but I either value your friendship more than I value this conversation, or, you know, I really just don't really want to go that direction.
Well,
hello, dog.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I've got two dogs that won't shut up.
Okay.
I apologize. You know, we have the evil that comes out of some of the fundamentalists' mouth is extraordinary, and it again goes down to manipulation and lies, and them being used by higher sources that they've made their allegiance to. You can, I mean, we can name names. There are Mormons, there are Masons, there are Jehovah's Witnesses. There's all the Seventh-day Adventists. There's all these various peculiar, especially in America, that want to demonize you for not going their way. And there is no rational thought, and there is no discussion. I mean, what their job is, they're not trying to come to a truth with you. They're trying to, at all costs, get you to join their cult, and they are just as dangerous and just as repulsive as a hardcore atheist. That basically, if you mention any kind of an existence over, they automatically turn off, and and the discussion's over. So if you have a Jehovah's Witness at the door, that discussion's over the minute it starts. So I mean, there's no coming together or any kind of joint exploration on that, and which is essentially bigotry and ignorance. So that's all that is.
Yeah. We're about to go into our hour break, which is just a 2-minute audio section here. But before we go there, I'm just going to say after the break, shortly after that, because I want to say a few things when we come back from our break. If there's people out there that want to call in, don't call just now, please, unless you just want to sit on the line. But as soon as we come back from our break, we'll take calls. I'll give the number and tell you how you can call us. But some of the things that I want to talk about is the things that we feel, the things that we know that are real, but we prefer to deny them because they go against what we've been taught or what we believe, and such alike. But when we come back from our break, we'll get into that. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back after this 2-minute break.
Hi, this is Duke Mayo Rockefeller. Please check out my humanitarian organization, www.livechildlive.org. You are listening to K-Wave 6 Radio with our esteemed radio host, Kirk Spencer.
Thank you for listening to today's show. We'll return to today's program shortly. Keep up with what's new at K-Wave 6 Radio by visiting our website at www.kwave6, that's the number 6, radio.tk. You can subscribe to our blog via the RSS feed button on our blog page titled What's New, or via the social media links in the website. If you missed any of our shows, you can find all of our shows archived in our YouTube channel. The link to our YouTube channel is on the homepage of our website. We also suggest that you check out the programming at Freedom Talk Radio by visiting their website at www.freedomtalkradio.co.uk. Now let's return to today's show.
Hi there, this is Chad C. Meek, writer and executive producer of the epic UFO thriller Giant Rock the Movie. Even if you haven't been abducted by E.T., you need to listen to the K-Wave 6 Radio Network to get the latest of the odd, the unusual, or more importantly, the fun. See you at the movies.
Well, there you go, Chad. You're still on the brakes there.
Nice.
Anyhow.
Heck,
yeah.
I'm impressed with myself. Heck, I think, my gosh, where do I sign up? I'm going to have to check out this Kirk Spencer fellow. He's got a lot of friends.
Okay, he's got me laughing, and Stash knows what that happens when I start laughing.
Yeah.
Anyhow, the thing that I want to bring back, getting back into the show.
Now I want to read the book.
Okay. I get first dibs on it. I got to do the editing. But
yeah, sure. Yeah,
anyhow. Let me see. We're back on the show, and I want to get back into what we deny, because most people, I would say, most people at least that I speak with, they acknowledge that there is something more to being human than just physical. They acknowledge that there is something more to us than just breathing and blood flowing through our veins. Even if they don't say it directly, they say it indirectly because they say, I have a feeling. Because, as I said at the beginning of the show, I'm a Qigong master. This is just the ability to move energy, understanding what it is, how to use it to your ability, etc., etc. Many people that have watched, say, martial arts movies, they see people flying around, they don't even touch them or whatever, and this is just, I'll say it in tongue-in-cheek, it could be an exaggeration of the ability of Qigong, and to a certain degree, some of it isn't. I'm only saying it's not, because there are things that I've seen other Qigong masters do that I don't do. As in this one case, this guy lives in the Orient, and I've actually seen him put his hand over a balled-up piece of paper, just like you'd find on any typewriter or printer, and he just focused his energy on this paper, and it literally caught fire. Okay? But, you know, to some people, that's magic, or that's devil worship, or you're in league with the devil, especially if you're Christian.
I think it's physics.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's manipulating physics, Kirk.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, it is. Well, it's one person put it. He says, "What causes a fire?" He says, "When you move atoms so fast that they literally heat up and become fire." So if you think about that, this is nothing more than what a microwave does. It just makes atoms vibrate to a point where they become hot. And you know, everything that we know is made up of atoms. Okay, so in using energy in this fact, just using this, I'm doing the same thing but through thought, with intention. And this is kind of getting back to even our conversation with Stash earlier. It is your thought. It is your intention. If you give way to fear, then your thought and your intention is, of course, I can't. Because whatever you think is what you're going to accomplish. And if you think negative of I can't, guess what? You can't.
Sure.
Every action starts with a thought. And if you're going to believe you can't, you won't.
Sure. I agree. Yeah. Thoughts are things. They really are. And I think we've all demonstrated that, some at a little higher level than others, but every human being has really has actually worked that, whether they knew that or not, that actually their thought really created a thing. It almost like a fungification, actually created a something, and something that materialized as far as that. And there's several examples as far as that, and I think that that's in some respect, which I take exception to what they did with the whole secret. They bastardized that whole philosophy, and trying to sell books, of course, which which is, but the basic premise is thoughts are things. You have the ability. Now, there's again, and I was thinking about your the various masters. Just because I can't roll up a piece of paper and create fire out of it, at least right now, today, that doesn't mean that someone else can't. Okay, and that's what everyone gets. They literally get trained to look the other way or think that it's such an impossibility. Well, it's quite possible. Levitation's quite possible. Yeah, it's been demonstrated. I mean, as far as this, I keep rolling back to cognitive dissonance. I have cognitive dissonance in my brain right now because I think we're trained not to see things. We're trained not to see the possibilities. And I think that science is actually also to be blamed because of their empirical evidence and their various, which is actually, spiritual prejudice. They're to blame as far as what a lot of people, because they want to get caught up in so much of a double-blind study or probability as far as that. But yeah, I know that 99% of the people can't make a piece of paper ignite, or 99.9%, whatever, can't. But you've seen it happen, and you're credible, and I believe you. So the reality is yes, it's possible. But is it possible for some people? But number one, you've got to believe that you can do that.
That's why I make a quick statement there that you say 99% of the people can't do it. I say 100% people can, but 99% have been taught to believe they can.
That they can't. It's exactly. I would put it in that perspective. Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. And so that is something. I mean, we've always. I think I don't know who I was talking about this. We live on this Garden of Eden that would literally have everything. We have more than ample resources for literally everything, and we have the ability, the intellect, to actually manage everything. But what comes up more often than not is, of course, fear of not having enough. We get programmed in our mind about not having enough, and think about running out of food. Look around you. Heck, I can look at my own stomach, and I can tell you right now, there's plenty of food. In fact, I have some to loan. As far as there's so there is. And then you get into the whole basic laws of thermodynamics, which you were talking about, and they get into this whole, scientists, they talk about these scientific laws. But now with, the whole quantum physics world, subatomic, particles and things like that, so it's a completely different world, we realize that things are working on a different level. So that is more in touch with your master who can, in fact, ignite a piece of paper. With that kind of concentration and thoughtful, turning something into an actual thing, which is fire. Well, that is what is available to us. Now, we're basically going backwards. I think that, we're going back to more of a flat world, type thinking. And for many, many years, they were claiming that if you went too far, you'd fall off the thing there, and if you said anything different, Pope Gregory or one of them would basically have you beheaded or put on fire. Well, again, that's the part. Don't think out of the box. And so that's what we're faced with. And how do we get above that? Well, I think that literally whatever they have over you, you just say, hey, I guess you can kill me, but you can't eat me. Or maybe you can kill me and eat me, but who cares? Right. So.
Well, we only have about 17 minutes to go, so if anyone wants to call in, the number in the U.S. and Canada is 347-677-0812. Once again, that's 347-677-0812. We have about 15 minutes to go, so give us a call, and we can continue the conversation with your questions, comments, or whatever. Anyway, one of the reasons why I actually brought up energy is because, well, today I have, in my English class, I teach English down here in Mexico, one of my students is actually a practicing psychologist. And I stood close to her reading out of the book I was writing on the board. And she told me later on, I felt your energy even though you weren't touching me. Energy feel good? She says, yes. Well, she came in with a sore throat. But it was just mostly talking. I felt energy on her, never touched her. And with was feeling great. I spoke to her about an hour, and she's still feeling great, but she understood it because her father promised. Now, several years ago, when I was teaching martial arts, he's a kung fu master, but he didn't get into Qigong. And he didn't quite believe in it. We were all out having peace evening, and I had to leave, and I had to walk the table we're sitting at. And he, just as I passed, he just had me before, but I believe in it now because of what I just felt. He says, I feel passing me. So yeah, there are those things that I tell people, when we used to talk about being psychic and other things like this, they would say, oh, you're gifted, or whatever the case may be, and I would go, no, it's not a gift. I can teach you how to do the same thing that I do. And who knows, in the future, you could possibly be better than me. Some people believe it, some people don't. So there we go back with the dissonance again.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, you have to, it's like theater or music. You have to suspend your disbelief in order to go beyond where you're at. That's just it. You get hung up in your disbelief, you can't change anything.
It's a very difficult way to live too. I mean, I think the various opiates that get activated in your head, in your brain, all the chemistry that as far as believing, and there really is a magical chemical occurrence that occurs when you believe. And actually, in reference to a lot of religions, that's how they become, because they get a whole group of people believing in a particular direction. And I think the universe just runs with it, because I think that is that whole quantum universe that occurs. But the downside is that they don't want you to go too far. Now, every great teacher, Kirk, everyone, their goal is to make the person a better practitioner than themselves. That at its core, if you're the Buddha, your prayer, and whether it'll happen or not, is to make everyone that you come in contact more and more evolved than yourself, or carry a particular, whether it be in martial arts or healing or whatever, to take it further. And if with that spirit, that if in fact you have that spirit, you literally can create. I mean, the miracle, whether it'll ever happen or not, but if you go in with that kind of mindset, trust me, that's how things really get going on planet Earth. But but everyone goes into this whole thing of turf and what have you. So I think you're, that's part of the magic. I think part of, with your psychologist friend, I think you perform some magic, and that's great.
Well, for some people, they call it magic. But before we go any further, let me introduce Chad. When he and I met, we were talking about his movie and his book and whatnot. But as time evolved, Chad and I are pretty much the same in this respect. Is we don't hide it, but we don't go around telling everybody that we are spiritual or metaphysical people. Chad is an astrologer and has been for over 25 years. He's also a psychic. Stash's father was an astrologist, and Stash has learned some stuff about that. So unless we get a caller in, why don't you guys talk a little bit about the psychic and the astrology and explain that in a way that our listeners can actually understand that?
If I could just, I want to leave plenty of time for Chad because he's more into the science, but just one real quick thought here. If you look at what's going on in our solar system now as it passes through the galactic plane, you see on every planet in our solar system, major climate change, major effects happening on a planetary level. You see our sun changing. Your favorite site there, Suspicious Observers. Every time there's a hole in the sun, we get earthquakes. Every time there's a solar flare, the auroras go off, and communications are disrupted. And here we are, bioelectric beings, and you can turn around and tell me that all of this stuff that's happening cosmologically has no effect on us? Get over yourself. Chad?
It does.
Yeah.
It does, and I feel it every day.
I do too. In fact, we just experienced a lunar eclipse, and you can tell. You can tell that you actually, because we are this electromagnetic people. We have meridians that go through us. We're being nourished by this big machine called the sun, and the various degrees of separation between the planets, and if they move, then things change within us. And it's amazing. I initially went into it from a fundamentalist Christian type thing, trying to disprove it. And I tell anybody, don't do that. Because 25 to 30 years later, or the rest of your life, you're going to be in there because it's so seductive, because you get these various glimpses of how you see these patterns line up that represent an event or something that occurs. And that, I've had so many experiences, and it. In fact, I was talking to a client right before the show. Actually, during the show, while I was trying to figure out how to get on, I had a phone call come in, and about that. So yeah, it is who I am. It's what I do. And I have and markets are affected, all kinds of things, and it's very humbling because we don't. We are just visitors. We're just. We're on top of this big, this big planet here. So it's a very humbling, circumstance. And contrary to the masters of the universe out there in Washington D.C. or New York, who think that they run things, they don't. And one of the really, and I guess that's the beauty and the beast with this whole thing is And so all I do in my practice is I'm just a navigator. I try to help people to get through the more difficult times of their life. And how I do that is I show them that based on the cyclic patterns, that things will not stay the same. And that if you keep your sense about yourself, you won't make it and don't make anything worse, that it will pass. And, at least how you feel about a particular event will pass. But things are going to, that's all I do. There's all kinds of things I can do with it. I've put together gambling charts. Been fairly successful at that, not only for myself but other people. I've tagged a certain amount of stock market activity along with that, and there's very few of us that can actually do that. Incidentally, tomorrow is another major down day. So when you wake up tomorrow and when you look at the various business channels on your computer, you're going to see a pretty major down day that's going to occur. And so I think we're getting the start of things today. Some of the news that's happened was, of course, the White House went dark. The Russian hackers had actually found a way to get in there in the State Department and completely knock out all electricity. So we're seeing a lot of very interesting things going on, but this can all be plotted, as far as with the so as above, so as below. So when you see all that junk going on up there, well, the same thing's happening down here. And it's very interesting as far as for my perception.
Go ahead, Sash.
Oh, I was just going to say some corollaries that go along with that. A phrase that I learned a while back with what Chad was saying is the only universal constant is change.
Yeah, exactly.
It never stops. It always happens. And as far as being influenced by things above, I have two words. One, tides. Number two, a very ancient word, lunatic. Think about where those came from.
Yeah, right. Yes, absolutely.
Actually, I want to get back into something that Chad said once before, and actually a friend of mine who was a mentor for me for a few years, Chad and this person used to say, still say the same thing. I haven't seen my mentor in a number of years, but he moved out of the country, so no, I don't talk to him anymore. But Chad, you said this when we were talking about astrology and whatnot, and you just got to saying it again. When these planets move into certain aspects and certain lines and so on and so forth, it tells you what is being set up. But it's not saying that this or that will happen because we have choice. And I suppose that's the big thing that I want to say in this whole show here. You as the listener, we as the people on the show, we all say we have choice. That's what Stash has been saying. That's what Chad has been saying. That's what I've been saying. You have a choice in how you live your life. It's not something your life is set in stone. You have a choice every day, all day. Do I want to drink water? Do I want to drink soda? Do I want to drink pop or whatever? You have choices. So go ahead, Chad.
Well, it really it's not about particularly. It's about how you feel. We have this thinking, portion of our brain, but we have this very, very, and it's an abstraction, this feeling part of us. And really, I've noticed there are about 5 or 6 different ways you can feel about something when you have an event occur to you. Okay. You can look at it as a learning experience, a surviving experience. You can look at it as a detrimental experience. You can look at it as an end-of-life experience. It doesn't matter, okay? And I mean, as far as that. But really, I mean, what does matter is how you feel about it. I mean, how do you feel about that particular experience that you're being confronted with. And that's really important, because the choice is how you feel about it. Well, how do you feel about weight loss? Okay, well, that's going to determine how successful you are, whether you're able to shed a few pounds or whether you're not. It's really, I mean, you can get into some other stuff, but primarily it's about how you feel about it. Do you feel better when you have less weight? I'm using this as a material example. Do you feel better? Yes. Okay. Are you healthier? Yes. Okay. Do you feel healthier? Yes. Are you more alert? Yes. Do you feel more alert? Yes. But it all comes down to feeling. This whole feeling, and which is really it does not. And this is what comes into the whole choice category, being able to choose. And one thing that I love about some of the 12-step programs out there, they always talk about this whole definition of insanity, and their prayer that they have, which I guess comes from the Gnostic religion. That's what I've tracked it down to, which is basically having, is knowing what you can change, okay, and also knowing the difference, okay, and having the wisdom to know the difference of these things. And that comes down to choices as far as that stuff goes too, because we know, like for instance, if Kirk, Stash, and myself were standing out here in the front of my house, which there's an ocean out there, there's a tidal wave that comes in there, okay, we've got a tidal wave coming, okay, and we all got to make some choices. And whether we survive or not is going to be determined on what our choices are, okay? As far as that goes. So yeah, and then you can actually extrapolate a little further. A lot of you talk about fear. If you're fearful and you're not going to do nothing, you're probably going to drown. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
There's always an angle somewhere. But I guess my point is, as far as that, and that's what we're always confronted with obstacles and challenges. And really, I mean, and this could be, and they're based on choices, and too. And I think that how you make the best of them is by making the best choice you possibly can, and just live with it, and just go on. There's many things that we have control over. There's many things also we don't. And
with that, we're going to have to end the show here. We're just about running out of time. I want to thank both of you, Chad and Stash, for being here. Sorry Michelle could not make this show tonight. Just as a little forward for next week, actually Wednesday morning, we're going to have Ben Davison of Suspicious Observers. We're going to talk about climate from the solar system and how it all affects us. And watch our blog, because we'll be telling you more about it there. Thanks, everyone, for being here, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care and be well. Thank you for being a part of our listening audience. Be sure to keep up with our shows and our podcast via our blog, on Twitter, and in Facebook. All links, including our RSS feed, are available at kwave6radio.tk. That's kwave6, the number 6, radio.tk. All the best.